Hey, I'm Dr. Deb. Welcome again, everybody, to this group, this wonderful live that I do every Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Today's talk is called I'm Fine. I don't have a problem. You're the one that needs therapy. How many people out there have experienced exactly that? How many people have found themselves pulling their hair out when they hear that? You know, this is how it works. And it's kind of sneaky and clever, but the person doing it isn't doing it to try to make you miserable. I promise. They're not doing it on purpose for that reason, okay? Here's why they're doing it, and here's how it works. They'll say something like, you're acting just like your mother, or something that is going to get you under your skin. They're going to say something to rile you up. They're going to say a little dig, a little sarcastic remark, and then you hit the roof, you go through the ceiling, you're feeling angrier than ever because you know very well that they touched a nerve. And they did it on purpose because they know that's your nerve. They know that they're going to get you riled up that way. And you can't stand the fact that you reacted, but by golly, every single time you do it. And then they say very calmly, see, you need therapy. How many people out there have experienced that? I want to interrupt myself and say, hey, listen, when you come in, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching this as a replay later on, I need for you to chat in. So, number one, I know you're there. And number two, because I want to hear from somebody. I don't like talking to myself. And number three, because I want to know if I'm on target. Am I making sense? So I need for you guys to chat in. So please chat in. So how many of you have experienced this? Let me go over the scenario one more time. You are just trying to have a point made. You're each trying to say something, and somehow it's not working. And you're starting to get frustrated when the other party pulls their punch and they say, you're just doing this because that's what your mother did, or your father did, or your uncle, or your grandparent, or whoever they don't like, whoever it is that you don't like that person or being compared to that person, your partner will do that or something else to get under your skin. You're a shy person, you don't like to go out in public, and you say you have a cold and there's a party and you don't want to go because you don't feel well. And they say, oh, you're lying. You're just saying that because you don't want to socialize. You're antisocial, like they. How many people have had this? And then they say, when you react, see, you're the one who needs therapy. I would love to have someone chat in. You're all out there. Please chat in. Tell me if I'm right, wrong, or otherwise. Have you had that? Maybe you haven't. Here's my point. Okay, you're shy. Listen, I get if you don't want your name on the chat because it will probably show up. It's theoretically supposed to show up when it's published. When it's done with this and it's published to the channel, yes, your name will show up. So I get it if you don't want to do that, and I'm with you. But I still want somebody to tell me something. Please comment later if you see this later. Okay. So what I'm asking you is this. If you have experienced this, and then your partner uses that, as somebody has says, to bite me in the rear end later on, it comes back to me. I get handed my vulnerability in my face for ever having mentioned that I had a problem with my mother or my father or whatever. It will get smacked in my face, and then I will react. I will react because that's my trigger, and they say, you need therapy. So even if you're not responding to me now, I would like you to kind of just think about that and ask yourself if that's the case. If so, here's what I truly recommend. I was taught by a teacher of mine, bring the person into therapy who's most willing. And it's a lot easier on the therapist to do that, but there's also something very helpful about it. If you came into therapy just exactly to work on that very thing, namely that you do get riled up, that you do find it gets under your skin, and you want very much to not react like that, then don't shy away from the idea that maybe you need therapy. Because overreacting, even when someone has been hard on you, is not a good thing for you. But B, there's another reason for doing this. When you can start being really calm inside, not just looking calm while your nails are clawing, the edge of the mountain cliff that you're going to fall off of. When you personally can go ahead and hear what they're saying and not get it under your skin so that you don't react badly. When you can say to yourself with a little measure of distance from them, wow, they're trying their tricks again because they don't want to go to therapy. When you start to clear your head that way, what happens? They can't get under your skin anymore, right? What happens is they're failing at their goal, which is deflecting the whole conversation off of themselves to you, right? That's the goal. They don't want to think about it. So they're deflecting the conversation and focusing the problem on you as if you were the problem. That's their goal. That's their agenda. They do this maybe very unconsciously, but there's a part of them in their dreams, in the back of their mind, that wants to accomplish this goal. Maybe I have to break that down a little. Are they doing it on purpose or aren't they doing it on purpose? So let me say like this. When you're driving a car, you don't stop and think, oh, there's a car making a turn in front of me. Maybe I better put my foot a little bit on the brake just to slow down and see if they pass first. You don't do it because it's automatic. That is your goal, but you're not conscious of it. It's because you've been trained so well and so long in the skills of driving that you just do it automatically. So this is how we always operate. 90% of what we're presented with socially, we have an automatic response to. That's generally how our culture works. That automatic response is generally what it is we've been taught by our experiences. So, like for an example, if you know that you say hello to your boss in the morning, he will grunt in a negative way, you'll probably stop saying hello because he obviously doesn't like it. So why bother? You know what I mean? Why bother doing something that's not going to help you in business at all? And it may make things worse. So just from the experience of this happening to you at work, you've learned not to say hello to him. And it may not be conscious. Your friend may be with you, who's from another department, another building, doesn't really know your boss or anything there, and goes, why didn't you say hello to him? And you might go, I don't know. I just don't. It didn't even register consciously, but you learned. That's just how animals are trained when they do their tricks, right? They're not consciously thinking. They learned. They learned from circumstances what to do and what not to do. So your partner also learned, possibly before ever meeting you, that if they do not want, and I'm saying the word they not in a with a socially correct way of saying people, but it could be a man and it could be the wife, it could be whoever it is in the relationship. We don't know. That's why I'm saying they learn simply automatically to deflect any tension on them to you or to whoever it is that they're confronting by doing this. So now we get to the question, why? Why would they? Why would a person not want to deal with his issues or her issues? Why would a person say you need therapy instead of being willing to go to therapy? Well, one reason could be that the therapy that they went to was crummy. It didn't work. And that's a very legitimate reason. And they may not even realize that that is what happened. I have had so many cases of people who did end up coming to me for therapy as adults, were sent as children, and they were humiliated by the therapist. They felt as if the therapist was there to give them another scolding after their parents had already given them a scolding. I mean, isn't this enough? How many scoldings do you have to get? You know? So they felt humiliated and kind of down on themselves, lacking in any kind of agency to empower themselves. They didn't have that from therapy, which they should have. That is what therapy should be, a way to get out of a problem, feeling good about yourself without damaging the other person either, to handle a problem effectively, smartly, wisely. They didn't get that. And so if that happened as kids, even if the therapist that you want to take them to now is good, they don't care. They absolutely don't want to have anything to do with it because of that past experience. And then I've had many people who come to me and say, well, the therapy that I have had lately, we have had, is a waste of time. We walk out and we go, I don't know, you know? And that's no good because, like, what's the point of spending your time and money and laying your heart on the line and having it go nowhere? That's no good either. So you may really have had that experience, and I can totally understand why people would feel that way. You know, you've experienced it and you don't want it. But then we have another question here. If that's true, why is it that you're willing to go back or you're willing to find someone else, but your partner is not? Does your partner simply have a lower tolerance level for pain? Because you see, here's the reality. There is no way you can change the way you handle something, which you realize is not a good way to handle something, without feeling a little bit of a little slap to your ego. You know, I've been doing it wrong all this time. It doesn't feel good. Whether it's the person who's being sarcastic and making that little dig at you, or whether it's you reacting through the roof over being given that little dig, either one, it doesn't feel so good. To discover in therapy, I'm not handling it so well. Now, there is a way around that. And the way I practice recognizes the following, that every single person's coping skills were developed because they needed them. Every person learned to use coping skills that would work for them because they needed those skills. And it was unconscious because it happened when you were kids. So therefore, if you've behaved in a wrong manner, the way I approach it and the way other therapists that work the way I do, which is called internal family systems, when we approach that, we say, yeah, of course you needed those coping skills. Thank your part of you. Thank the part of you that has been helping you or trying to help you by reacting this way, because they meant well. It meant well. That part of you meant well. It's not a bad thing. It's not working very well and it's causing trouble right now, but it meant well. This way, you as the client don't feel this terrible sense of shame for having done things wrong, because the way you handle things wasn't really wrong. The way you handle things was as good as it could have been under the circumstance since you were just a kid. But it honors your internal wisdom. It says, but you know what? Even if you were handling things that way, that's not the true you. The true you is better than that. The true you knows how to handle things in a wise and helpful and kind way that still has self-respect, sets boundaries, and speaks up courageously. That's the true you. So you're giving the client both messages. You are getting both messages from someone like me who's telling you, yes, it made sense in its own time, but that's not the true you. The true you knows better than that. Now, how do you take that and fold that into the whole situation of one person who turns against you and says, you need therapy, I'm fine? Well, I have two approaches. One approach is to say to yourself and them, you're right. I need therapy because every single time you stab me in the back, I scream. Should a person scream when they're stabbed in the back? Yeah. But what if they were stabbed in the back with a toy that was made out of rubber? The little knife was made out of rubber and it didn't actually do anything. See? I mean, you could be stabbed with a real knife or you could be stabbed with a toy that doesn't do anything. The real difference between those scenarios is how you perceive it. Why does it get you triggered? What part of you is hurting deeply inside so that when they say whatever it is they're triggering you with, it gets to you? And that's what you could do your therapy on, so that when that moment comes, that it just feels like a toy knife and it doesn't mean anything anymore because you're better. You're better than that. And it's not even true anymore. Let's say, for an example, they say you're just like your mother. And there's a part of you that doesn't want to be just like your mother because your mother would say nasty things to me, myself, my mother, if I'm the client. So if you get to a place in therapy where you heal from that and you no longer do it, then they're wrong. Oh, you're telling me I'm just like my mother. Actually, you're right. I used to be, but I guess we haven't talked much. I'm not just like my mother anymore. Have you noticed in the last 6 weeks or 2 months that I haven't done that? See? Now you have proof, you have evidence to support the fact that you've healed. And they can't get to you, and they haven't gotten to you. And there's more there, more. Not only do you no longer feel like you're being put on the defensive, No longer do you feel insecure and hurt because what they said was actually true in some way and it's the worst thing in the world for you. Not only all of that, but more so, you have compassion on them because now you're saying to yourself, and you can ask, Steve or Janice, whoever the person is you're talking to, why do you do that? Do you know why you do that to me anyway? Do you even know? You were trying to trigger me. You used to succeed at it, and you did it a lot. And then you would say you need therapy, right? That was the conversation. And now that's not happening the way you used to it. But why? Why in the first place? Now, if the person you're speaking to is the least bit honest with themselves, they don't have an answer, and they know they don't have an answer. They may storm off, right? But you've planted a question in their head. And so, method number one is working on yourself so that you no longer react the way you used to because you've healed and you're calm enough and clear-headed enough to turn the question in a loving way back on them, in a loving way to put it to them so that they could start to think, well, maybe therapy would pay off. And you can take that even further and say to them, look, I know you've been objecting to therapy because the people we have gone to or you went to as a kid were no good. But now I found somebody good and I'm healed from it. Why don't you give it a try? That's way number one. Number two, possibility number two is that you convince them that although they are right, they clearly do need therapy just because they're saying something that they know is going to trigger you. You know, Tom, or you know, Jane, I don't know if you realize that you do this to me, and this is back at the beginning, before you went to therapy to get healed. See, that's way number one, but this is way number two. You know, I wonder how we get into this pattern all the time. You trigger me, and I go through the roof, and I react, and you say you need therapy. But my question to you is, why do you do that in the first place? We're in a pattern here that you are just as much a part of as I am. Can you see that? Now again, they may storm off. They may. But what I have found, and I can promise you this, when those guys do finally end up talking to me, or women, they are perfectly rational people who are willing to admit their mistakes and willing to admit their approaches to handling things, their coping skills may not be the best. And they don't feel defensive with me. And why is that? What is my secret? What is my trick that they don't feel defensive? The answer is because I don't put them on the defense by acting in my head like I'm accusing them. I'm telling them their coping skills worked for them once upon a time and it makes sense that they would use them. We're acknowledging together that it's not working right now because it keeps ending up in fights. So do we want to change things? I'm soothing them and smoothing the way inside so they can be vulnerable to themselves. It's not just to me, but yes, to me as well. Because that's the secret. So whether you approach it by going first or whether you approach it by trying to convince them to go at the same time with you, by saying you're starting it, let's face it, when you say this, it all works out either way to get them started. And now the question is, why are they continuing, if they don't get started, why are they continuing to be obstinate about not going. Some people are very obstinate. They're part of them that learn to be stubborn is absolutely beyond reach. And I do not want anyone to think that I'm in favor of taking pain endlessly. I don't believe in that. No one should be a sponge that just absorbs pain. So that's when you can finally set a boundary and say, okay, this isn't working, and you're not at all able to you're not at all able to uh, uh, take a chance on being vulnerable with another therapist. And I realize it's hard, but I can only do this for so long. It's very painful, and I'm sure you feel that way too. Now, that doesn't necessarily lead to the big D word. It could, or it could lead to therapy. But sometimes an honest conversation in which you are able to be open and vulnerable will get that person to recognize their role in things. But I will tell you, and I'm going to wrap this up with this thought, the worst thing that you can do, the absolute worst thing that you can do, is throw your hands up and say, this is so frustrating. Okay, it's frustrating. And what are you going to do about that? Because every frustrating thing that we have to go through in life has a solution. There's a solution around the corner somewhere. Grab the solution, guys. Grab that solution. So I love to see chats, and this is coming to an end, so you can go back once this is published and use the same link to watch it again and comment there. Love to hear from you guys. And thank you for the thumbs ups. I appreciate those too. Take care.